So typically on these videos, I'm showing you guys stuff that I've done before or been doing a while, kind of tried and true techniques in my book. But today I'm going to try something I've never tried before, and I don't know if it's going to work. Now I've seen it done and I think it'll work, but we're just going to have to see. You see this row of cherry tomatoes right here? No, they're not that big yet. They haven't been planted that long. But today we're going to try a trellising technique that I've never tried on cherry tomatoes, or any tomatoes for that matter. Now we've got our big plot of mostly determinate tomatoes right here, and these puppies are looking fine. I've came in here and put another run of string there for my Florida weave trellis. We showed you how to do that in a previous video. All these guys are looking super great. I think I did lose one or two plants on the very end down there, but that's okay. And then this row here, we've got all these indeterminate types, and we've got some cherry tomatoes down on the end here. And we showed you how in that video we're going to use these T-posts with the Florida weave to trellis these guys, and that's working good so far. We've got three lines of string ran on these, and we'll be running the string all the way to the top of those posts there. So today, instead of doing another Florida weave on this little row of cherry tomatoes over here, what I'm gonna try is I'm gonna try using our Horta Nova trellis to kind of support these guys as they grow. I've seen it done before. I've seen pictures of it, never tried it myself, but it's worth a try. I don't really, need this row of tomatoes. It was just some extra plants I had, and I figured, hey, we'll just throw in this row on the end of this plot here and try a different technique and see if we like it better. If it works better, I think it's going to be easier than doing the Florida weave for these cherry tomatoes, but we'll just have to see. So we've got two cherry varieties along this row here. The first half is this variety called Black Zebra Cherry, which I've never grown before, but man, they look just really, really tasty. So I'm excited about trying those if they make it. And then on the far end down here, these plants that are a little bigger is the Sweetie cherry variety. And I have some of those planted on that Florida weave section behind me here. These guys seem to grow a good bit faster than these black zebras do. They're just a little more vigorous for whatever reason. But the Sweetie is just your standard red cherry tomato, whereas this is more of a specialty type here. Now I did lose a plant, so right there where that post is. I lost one plant there, which, oh well, that happens. And then this guy here, I don't know if you can see that there with my shadow, this kind of leaned over a little bit. The wind kind of broke it over, but I have noticed that the tomatoes, they'll kind of stitch themselves up and recover a little bit even if that happens. So I think this one is going to make it. And it looks like the rest of them are going to make it. They're just not as big as those guys over there because we planted these a lot later. Like I said, they were just some extra plants I had, and I was like, well, I'll do something with them instead of throwing them away. So before we run our Horta Nova trellis on those cherry tomatoes over there, I want to talk a little bit just about the Horta Nova trellis in general, what I like to use it on, what I would use it on, and maybe what I wouldn't use it on, and show you a couple examples around my gardens. So here's our squash and cucumber plot in this area we call the Dream Garden, and I've got two rows of Horta Nova trellis cucumbers in here. I've got these Diomede cucumbers here, and I've got some stone walls right there on the other side of the plot. And I've been using these guys on cucumbers for over a year now. Works really good. Now once these things get loaded up a little bit, just completely covered with the vines, loaded down with big cucumbers, it will sag just a little bit, but it doesn't bother me at all. You try to stretch it as tight as you can when you're putting it together there with the zip ties, and it holds these big cucumbers pretty well. You can see one dangling right there. So definitely a winner on cucumbers for me so far, and just got to get it stretched tight, and it'll hold for you pretty good. Here's that other row of cucumbers I was talking about. This is a Stonewall variety, and they haven't quite climbed as much as that Diomede variety has yet, but they're producing an equal amount of cucumbers, and this is looking good liking the way this is going so far. You do have to train them a little bit in the beginning. Once they start climbing up that thing, they do it pretty well on their own. And if we turn around here, we can see we've got our Kentucky blue pole beans on another one of these Hortonova trellises here, and works really well for pole beans. I don't ever really see a whole lot of sagging at all with the pole beans. Of course, beans are obviously not near as heavy as cucumbers are with, you know, the foliage or the fruits, but these things are starting to load up with beans here, and holds these guys really, really well. And then the last Hortonova trellis that I have set up currently is another row of cucumbers, kind of in our cucumber succession planting. So those two rows I showed you earlier were both slicers, the Diomede and the Stonewall. This here is the Max Pack variety, which is a pickling variety, and those guys are climbing real good. I really hadn't had to train these at all. They just are loving that trellis, climbing up there. We've got blooms, you know, all over these things here, and should start being able to harvest those about any day now. So as you can see there, works pretty dang good for cucumbers, works pretty dang good for pole beans. Those are the two main trellis crops I grow, and what I've really been using the Hortonova trellis for in the last year or so. Now the crops I wouldn't try to grow on it, just because it does have some strength limitations. You know, it's not as strong as a cattle panel. It's never going to be. It's like really thick fishing line. So I wouldn't try to grow like a butternut squash on it, or a really heavy winter squash. I had some people asking, would you grow our Cherokee tan pumpkin on it? And I wouldn't. Those things just produce so much foliage, I think it would just swallow that Hortonova trellis. So there are some limitations on what you can grow on them. I wouldn't grow big beefsteak tomatoes on them. I don't think it would hold them that well. But I think with these cherry tomatoes, since the fruits are a lot smaller, it just may work. What are you doing up there, taking a nap? You off duty for rat catching today? So I'm not completely against cattle panels as a trellis. I have some, as you can see here, and I have used them for years, and they work great for that heavier stuff. They just take a little longer to put up. It's a lot more work to install them and put them up, and if you're moving them around a lot, you know, that can be aggravating at times. That Hortonova is just a little easier. These things obviously last a lot longer, because we're comparing, you know, fishing line to galvanized steel there. But it is what it is. Some things are going to be better with a cattle panel. Some things are going to be a lot easier with the Hortonova. So let me go grab some zip ties and a pair of scissors. We'll get this Hortonova trellis up real quick, and then talk about maybe our strategy going forward. So I've got my bundle of Hortonova trellis here, and we sell this in several different lengths and heights. We've got a 4-foot tall version. We've got a 59-inch tall version, which is what I'm using today. So basically 5-foot tall, and then several different lengths. Now, I like the big one here, which is 328 feet long. And I like it because I always have it. I can cut it to length. This stuff doesn't go bad. This is a roll I've had since last year. So I'm never really worried about, do I have enough? I've got a big roll here. I can cut it to length as I need it. You know, most of my rows are only 30 to 40 foot long, but it's nice to always have it when you need it and you want to throw up a trellis with a quickness. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll this thing out to my approximate row length. And so I'll just kind of unfold it here, and the stuff actually unrolls pretty nice. It's not messy at all. I'm just going to put this brick down right here to hold it there, and I'm just going to start to unroll it until I get down to the end of my row. And then down here I've got my last T-post on this row, and so I'm just going to kind of cut it to an approximate length there. We can trim it up later once we get it all secure with the zip ties. All right. Now for this stuff to work really well, you got to get it nice and tight. So the first thing I'm going to do is just unravel it here at the very end. I'm going to put the top up here on the top of this T-post just so it kind of stays right there, and then I can pull down on it here on the bottom and get it nice and tight. I want to try to get it as close to the bottom as I can. And I'm just going to put me a zip tie down here, kind of cinch it in place. And then I'll put me another zip tie here at the top. And I'll put me one more here in the middle. And then instead of worrying about these posts in the middle, what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way to the very end. We're going to pull this thing as tight as we can and get it real tight. That works better, in my opinion, than getting it tight to this next post, into the next post, into the next post. You pull it real tight from one end to the next, then zip tight around those middle posts. After you've got it tight from end to end, it seems to work a lot better that way. So now I'm on the other end of the row, and I've got it cinched on that post way down there, and I'm just going to fold this stuff out just like that right there. Actually, there we go. So we got it unraveled there, and we can kind of sneak it behind these tomato plants here in a minute. But the first thing I'm going to do is pull it as tight as I can, and I'm going to hook it around the top of that T-post there. And then that's what I'm going to zip tie in place here to make sure it's super, super tight along the top here. There we go. All right. And then I'm just going to make sure we're on the right side of these tomato plants here before I cinch it down real tight on the bottom. Get me another zip tie here. Pull it real tight. And there we go. And then we'll just want to put one in the middle here for good measure. All right. So you can see here we've got it pretty daggum tight from end to end. Now we're going to worry about these middle posts. And what I'll do is I'll do the bottom first, then the top. So I want to make sure it's stretched nice from top to bottom, and then put the middle one in there. So I'm going to get it all the way down here at the bottom. Zip tie it there. Pull it as tight as I can here at the top. And then we'll make sure we get one in the middle here. And we'll do that for all these middle posts, and got a nice solid trellis there. All right, all right, all right. There she is. Nice and tight there. You just gotta start on one end, get it tight on the other end, and then worry about the middle post. Now this is the $1,000,000 question. How do I treat these plants now? And some of you that grow tomatoes on cattle panels might could tell me, do I need to just kind of weave those plants as they grow in and through that stuff? One good thing about this stuff here is it's a little bit flexible as opposed to a cattle panel, so we can work our plants in and out of there without worrying about breaking them. So should I do that, or should I use some zip ties and kind of cinch them to that trellis as they grow up it? Now I kind of would rather not have to do that, because I think I'd have to leave the zip ties kind of loose, because as the plant stem grows, I don't want it to be constricted by a zip tie or anything. So I'm hoping I can just kind of weave them through here, and they'll kind of, you know, grab around these different little rungs of this trellis here as they grow, and hopefully that will hold them. So if you do grow tomatoes on a trellis like this, let me know what you think I should do. Should I just let them kind of crawl through it as they grow up, or should I cinch them to it there to anchor them even further? And I'll be sure to keep you guys updated as these plants grow vertically along this Hortonova trellis as to, you know, how I think it works as a good, effective method for trellising smaller cherry tomatoes. Like I mentioned, I think, actually I know, this is quicker than doing the Florida weave like we did before, but we'll just have to see if it is as effective as doing that Florida weave. I'll put some links below so you can check out all of our Hortonova trellis options for your garden. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that bell button so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. And check out these other 2 videos right here. I think you'll really enjoy those as well. We'll see you next time.